Welcome into the first Blazers Uprise mock draft of this offseason. Number 1, I have the Atlanta Hawks taking Alex Sarr. It looks like Onyeka Okongwu may never get the chance to start in Atlanta. Sarr's the best player on the board. Atlanta's in position to go for the best player available, and they should probably trade Trae Young this offseason and truly start a rebuild. They need their picks back from San Antonio to do so. Trae Young makes some sense for San Antonio. That's a trade to watch. I like Sarr there at 1. At number 2, I have the Washington Wizards taking Nikola Topic out of Serbia. Luckily, the latest injury that he went down with doesn't seem to be serious. He missed time earlier in his season overseas with an injury, and he is somebody I have 6th on my big board, but makes sense for the Washington Wizards. They need a point guard long-term, and Topic might have more upside than any other guard in the league. It makes sense for the Wizards to take him at 2. At number 3, I have the Rockets taking Matas Buzelis, and the Rockets got a lot of players at a lot of positions, so it makes sense to go with a guy who's positionally versatile and has some upside, and I think Buzelis is a bit underrated right now. I think he's had a good draft combine, measured well, tested well athletically, and I think he's going to be a guy that will be able to figure out his three-point shot, and that'll make him a really good, well-rounded prospect with some sneaky upside. I think he does have a chance to be a star one day. At 4, I have the San Antonio Spurs taking Rob Dillingham. Rob Dillingham supposedly wants to go to San Antonio. They need a point guard. If they don't trade for Trae Young, like I talked about earlier, then Rob Dillingham could make a ton of sense with that 4th overall pick. I think he has some upside. He can make shots. He's an underrated playmaker. I think he will run the pick and roll beautifully with Victor Wembanyama. He'll be somebody that can throw him lobs and actually get him the ball. And he can play off Wemby as a shot maker. You could even see some inverted pick and pops with Dillingham setting the screen and popping, although Dillingham's like 165 pounds. I'm not sure how good of a screen that's going to be, but I do like him at 4 to San Antonio. At 5, Reed Sheppard makes so much sense for the Pistons. They need shooting. They have big playmakers. They can play Reed Sheppard at a point guard spot because he's point guard sized at 6'1". He didn't measure well. But he doesn't have to handle point guard responsibilities on the offensive side of the ball because you got a 6'6" Cade Cunningham. I think Asar Thompson will grow into a really good secondary playmaker, and he can play the 3. So I really like Reed Sheppard because he has players next to him that make him a good fit, and he's going to be really good as a floor spacer playing off those guys for a team that needs shooting. Charlotte Hornets at 6, and the player I love here for them is Stephon Castle. He is a 6'5", almost 6'6" guard, really good defensive piece, and I think he slots in very well next to LaMelo Ball and next to Brandon Miller. He can fill that shooting guard spot. He wants to play some point guard. He'll probably get the chance to play some point guard, given that LaMelo Ball can't stay healthy for an entire season. That gives the Hornets a good insurance policy, I guess, with a guy that can play 3 positions, point guard, shooting guard, small forward. They can start Castle at the shooting guard spot. He can be their lockdown defender. He can be their glue guy. They don't really need a scorer because they have Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. I really like Castle and his fit there at 6 to Charlotte. At 7, I have the Blazers going with Zachary Risacher. I personally would go with Ron Holland, but I do think the Blazers would pick Risacher here at 7. I think there's a chance Risacher falls. I don't think he has much upside. I think he has some question marks. I don't trust in his ability to create off the dribble, but I do think he can become a pretty good 3-and-D player at 6'10", and he can shoot the 3 ball. I don't know quite how good his 3-point shot is. I don't think it's as elite as some people that have him potentially going number 1 think it is, but the Blazers do need shooting, and they could use another defensive forward. They have shot creation in their guards, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Shaedon Sharpe. So I could see the Blazers going Risacher at 7 and viewing him as a really clean fit there. And then that leaves San Antonio up with the 8th overall pick, and they took Rob Dillingham at 4. I think that they would want a defensive-minded player here. I think Ron Holland makes a lot of sense for them. He could be that lockdown defender. You got Wemby at the 5 who can shoot the 3, so Holland's lack of a shot hopefully wouldn't be too problematic there, and if he can develop that shot, I do think he has some sneaky potential as a ball handler, creator with a good first step and good body control, and would slot in there and get minutes right away in San Antonio. At 9, I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking Dalton Connect. I love this fit. The Grizzlies need shooting. The Grizzlies need a sixth man type of scorer, especially one that can play the three, considering they have a three-guard lineup right now that has John Morant, Desmond Bane, and Marcus Smart in it. Dalton Connect is a perfect fit in Memphis at number 9. They're going to be going for it again next year after being injury plagued this year, and a 23-year-old player like Connect, maybe this pick seems a little high for him, but he can step in right away and help the Grizzlies win. At 10, I have the Utah Jazz going Cody Williams, and the Jazz could use a big wing, somebody that can play the three, somebody that can shot create a little bit and has the traits that Cody Williams does. He needs to shoot threes with more volume, and that's a major question mark. Can he be a good three-point shooter in the NBA on volume? We'll have to wait and see. At the very least, he can create a little bit. That's always intriguing in a forward. At 11, I have the Chicago Bulls taking Donovan Clingan. The Bulls supposedly still want to win and build around DeMar DeRozan. I don't know why, but Clingan could be a guy that could maybe start right away if they look to move off Vucevic, or could play behind Vucevic and be a good backup center from the jump. Defensive, big, didn't have the best athletic testing in the combine. Zach Edey actually tested better than him, so that's a little bit worrisome, but I do like Clingan there at 11 to Chicago. At 12, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder, going with a little bit of a swing here maybe, but Keyshawn George is my pick. He measured pretty good at the combine, has upside as a shooter, shot creator, playmaker, and the Thunder could go for some upside at a small forward spot. They do have Jalen Williams there, but he can slide down to the 2. Long term, it might make most sense to actually play J-Dub at the 2 and SGA at the 1 and have somebody like a Keyshawn George, if he can develop at the 3, who can handle some ball handling duties, but it's just a knockdown shooter. Of course, they've been playing Jalen Williams at the 4, so who knows with this roster. They could use some more size, but I don't really like any of the prospects, the big men prospects here at 12 for them left on the board. If Clingan's there, I do really like that, though. At 13, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Jalen Tyson. I think Jalen Tyson is extremely underrated in this draft process. I have a lottery grade on him, and the Kings are going to need somebody to replace Malik Monk. I think he's gone this offseason. They're going to need somebody that can score the ball a little bit, make plays, and I like Jalen Tyson as a do-it-all wing that can play the 2 or the 3 and provide them with a really good bench piece, and I think Jalen Tyson is the type of prospect that the Kings like to take. Of course, took Keegan Murray a couple years ago, took Kobe Jones last year in the second round. I feel like Jalen Tyson kind of fits into that mold a little bit, as a little bit older of a prospect, but has multiple good traits to his game. At 14, I have the Portland Trailblazers taking T-John Salon. I think this should ultimately be the basement for him. The Blazers, after going with Risache at 7, who doesn't have much upside, go with another French player that has a ton of upside. And if the Blazers play it safe with 7, they should swing for the fences with 14, and Salon is just that, as a guy that can move, 6'9", 6'10", can knock down a 3, has some flashes of playmaking, still kind of learning how to play the game, very raw, but has as much upside as you're going to find on the board here at 14. At 15, I have the Miami Heat taking Devin Carter. Perfect culture fit. They could use a point guard. They got Terry Rozier, but I don't know if he's a long-term fit there, and they could use a defensive complement to him, and I think Devin Carter is that and would come in and play right away and fit their culture beautifully there in Miami as a hard-nosed defensive point guard. At 16, if I'm the Sixers, I'm looking for somebody that can come in and contribute right away. They have a ton of cap space, and that means very few players on their roster this offseason, so getting a low-cost contributor here with the 16th pick is very vital. And I was deciding between Jared McCain and Jacoby Walter. Ultimately, I'm going to go with Jared McCain. I think Maxi's big enough to play that 2-guard spot, play next to McCain. Maxi can be the lead guard there, and McCain can be the guy that can shoot, provide some secondary playmaking, maybe start with him, or he replaces that Seth Curry role off the bench that the Sixers used to have. I like Jared McCain at 16 to Philadelphia. At 17, Kel'el Ware is such a perfect pick here. Almost 7 feet tall, 9'4.5" standing reach. Love his measurements. The motor is a question, but the talent is there. The upside is there. So I like that pick for them. At 18, the Orlando Magic. They need shooting. They need a guard that can knock down shots. Maybe a guard that can create shots as well, because they're lacking that in their guard rotation. But none of these guards left are both of those. Collier can create, but has question marks with his shot. Jacoby Walter has question marks with his creation, but can knock down threes. I'm going to take Jacoby Walter here at 18 for Orlando. At 19, the Toronto Raptors, I have taking Pacome Dadiet. He's a 6'8", 6'9" wing that can really shoot the ball, really pretty jumper, and just feels like a Raptors pick. I don't know too much about his defense or other areas of his game, but he's been a name that started to get talked about as a first-round prospect and somebody I'm going to dive even more into on the tape soon. Just from what I've watched of him, his jumper is beautiful, beautiful. At 20, the Cleveland Cavaliers have a lot of question marks surrounding them right now. So Darius Garland is said to be requesting a trade if Donovan Mitchell gets an extension. In that scenario, I like Isaiah Collier here to replace Garland. He's not the greatest shooter, but you're not going to find a better point guard prospect on the board here. And there's really nobody that jumps out as a small forward that could start for them, maybe a Tristan da Silva. But ultimately, I think there's a good chance they trade Garland and they replace him with a guy like Collier. If Jared McCain was there, they would love him, to be honest. 21 is New Orleans, and I'm going to have them take a guy that could play some backup forward, but maybe be their long-term starting center as well. Could play next to Zion. That is Deron Holmes, the second out of the University of Dayton. A bit of a tweener big man, but definitely has some talent and some skill, and that makes him very intriguing. At 22, the Phoenix Suns are thrilled because Missy is on the board, and my favorite prospect for the Suns here is Devin Carter, but he won't fall. Missy might and could maybe come in and be a starting center right away. He's definitely going to have some rough moments, if he's requested to pass it all or do anything with the ball in his hands, but they got a big three there, right? But what can Missy do for them? He can come in, be a lob target, protect the rim, switch out onto the perimeter and guard a little bit. So I really like Missy coming in and being at least the backup center behind Nurkic, but maybe getting a prospect like him could embolden the Suns to trade Nurkic attached with their 2031 first and try and fill the point guard spot or get a wing that can defend. At 23, the Milwaukee Bucks take Tristan da Silva, a guy that can come in, space the floor, play small forward or power forward, and produce right away for a team with championship aspirations that got derailed by injury last year. At 24, I have the New York Knicks taking Oric Chomchi, upside play, very raw, going to take multiple years to develop him, but the Knicks have a pretty stacked rotation, a lot of depth right now. They're not going to draft somebody that's going to come in and play right away, most likely, here at 24. So taking an upside swing on a big when they don't really have an entrenched starting center long-term is a pick that I think makes a lot of sense there at 24. And then at 25, I think they might as well swing for upside again, and I'm going to go with A.J. Johnson, another guy multiple years away, but if the Knicks can develop both these guys, have as much upside at this point in the draft as anyone, and the Knicks are in a perfect position to swing for upside because, as I said, the rotation is stacked. At 26th, I have the Washington Wizards, who took Nikola Topic with the second pick. I have them going with Zach Edey. I think this is the range that Edey should start to be considered. There's a lot of mock drafts that have him higher than this, but the Wizards don't really have a starting center long term. Edey could come in and maybe start right away, and you get a guy that might put a few butts in seats there in Washington, and Topic at the very least could get him the ball, could pass him the ball. So intriguing pick and roll duo there. Both of them could be starting point guards and centers there. 27. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going to take Jameer Watkins. I really like Jameer Watkins as a defensive piece that can make reads, that can pass the ball, and just kind of fits Minnesota's culture. The Timberwolves don't really need anything other than a point guard, I guess, but I'm not a fan of the point guards on the board at this point, and they do have another pick in this draft where they could wait on a point guard. At 28, the Nuggets are going to take Hunter Salas. He's a lockdown defender that can replace that Bruce Brown role that they didn't really have filled this past year. Christian Brown has been playing for him, but I think Salas projects as a better defender and has a little bit of juice off the dribble, can attack the rim a little bit, shot the three ball really well this past year. I think he would make sense for the Nuggets, who I think need a potentially lockdown defender at a guard spot, and Salas is the best option left for that. At 29, the Utah Jazz, who took Cody Williams at 10, they're in position to swing for a little bit of upside here. I'm going to have them taking Nikola Jurisic. They have the 32nd pick as well, so 3 picks. It makes sense to take a guy that they could potentially stash and has looked good at the combine, but I mean, they could bring him over and he could play right away as well. 30, the Boston Celtics, I have taking Tyon Grant Foster, who I think is being slept on and could come in right away and just give them a scoring punch off the bench at a forward spot, and possesses some sneaky upside as a 24-year-old. I think he makes sense for a team that doesn't need to rely upon their first-round pick, but could take a swing on a guy that could produce right away there for the Celtics, and I could just see him being a guy that gives problems as they score off the bench long-term, and the Celtics teaching him how to fit in a team concept, and I like Grant Foster is a late first-round pick. A lot of mock drafts have him going as a second. At 31, the Raptors, who took Dadia at 19, I'm going to have them taking Kyle Filipowski, ending his slide. I just don't like Filipowski as a lottery type of pick, where I've seen him mocked a lot. I just don't think his game translates too well. Doesn't really beat anybody off the dribble. Isn't somebody that's strong enough to play the center spot or big enough. He didn't measure too well. And he scored a lot in the post in college. He's not going to get the same looks in the NBA. And his skill set at the power forward spot, I'm not really sure what he does too well. The rest of these second round picks I'm going to fly through, though, unless it's a very notable name. At 32, the Jazz, who took Cody Williams and Nikola Jurisic, I'm going to have them taking Carlton Carrington out of Pitt. At 33, we have the Milwaukee Bucks. They could go for another guy that could contribute right away. They took Tristan da Silva as a combo forward. They're going to take a wing here with Baylor Shireman out of the University of Creighton. Both these guys can shoot, can pass a little bit, good feel for the game, would really help out that Milwaukee bench. At 34, the Portland Trailblazers, who took Richeche and Salon, I have them taking Tyler Smith. They do have Salon at the 4 and a bunch of other players, but it's just a value pick at this point for the Blazers. At 35, the Spurs, who took Holland and Dillingham, I have them going with Jonathan Mogbo, who is a center that can pass, defend, only 6'6", but 7'2" wingspan, so I think he can play that spot, and I just like his fit next to Wembanyama, and he feels like a Spurs type of player there. At 36, I have the Pacers going with Trenton Flowers, who's another one of the sleepers that I like. Minnesota at 37 is going to get their point guard, that is Tyler Kolek, to replace Monte Morris, and maybe ultimately replace Mike Conley in the starting lineup if he can become good enough. At 38, the Knicks, who went with Chomchi and AJ Johnson, 2 upside swings, are going to take a backup guard with a winning pedigree in Tristan Newton. At 39, the Memphis Grizzlies, who took Dalton Connect, are going to take Adem Bona, who is an intriguing rim protector, bit undersized, not much upside, but could provide some spot minutes at a backup center spot. At 40, this pick is tough for the Blazers because I would like to go center for them, but there really aren't any good centers left. And it might make sense to just take a guard here, somebody you could put on a 2-way contract. I'm going to take a guard with some size as well in Adama Ball out of Santa Clara. You just hope he can be the next Jalen Williams or Brandon Podziemski, 2 players out of Santa Clara that have been good rookies the past couple of years. At 41, the Sixers, who took Jared McCain at 16, I have them just going for a bench shooter in Justin Edwards. At 42, the Hornets, who took Castle at 6, are going to go with Johnny Furphy, who I see a lot higher than this, but I do not like him as a first-round prospect. There's just not much to his game other than the shot, and he's 6'8" with a 6'8" wingspan, and he doesn't really play big, so he's really just a shooter to me. Didn't measure well. At 43, the Heat are going to take another Heat culture type of guy, another guy that can defend, a wing out of Colorado State, and Nick Clifford. And then at 44, the Rockets are going to take a draft and stash guy, given all the players they have on their roster that deserve minutes, and Melvin Aginsa. At 45, the Kings, who took Jalen Tyson with the 13th pick, get another guy who could maybe replace the Malik Monk role in Antonio Reeves. At 46, the Clippers, this is their first and only pick of the draft. They have a lot of question marks surrounding them. They go with a guy who can play right away in Kevin McCullough. I see Kevin McCullough as a first-round prospect. I have him as a second-round guy. He had some injury questions last year, has some questions with his shot. Not really sure what his role is at the next level. The Clippers take him. At 47, the Magic, who took Jacoby Walter, I have them taking Bobby Klintman. At 48, the Spurs, who took Dillingham, Holland, and Mogbo, I have them going with Izon Almansa. I think he could play next to Wembanyama as well. I like them taking Mogbo and Almansa to maybe be their future center duo if they want to play Wemby at the 4. Or you could consider Izon or Mogbo a 4 and Wemby at the 5, whatever you want. At 49, I have the Pacers taking Harrison Ingram. They also have the 50th pick. I have them swinging a little bit here for Coleman Hawkins, who possesses a little bit of upside as a 6'10 creator, played well at the Combine. At 51, I have the Washington Wizards taking Dylan Jones out of Weber State. At 52, I have the Golden State Warriors going with Ryan Dunn. I think Ryan Dunn's lack of an offensive game could cause him to fall. Maybe would have made sense for a couple of teams to take him before this, but you're just hoping that you can teach him how to shoot, because then he could be a really good role player. He's just one of the guys I could see falling on draft night. At 53, I have the Detroit Pistons taking Michael Ajayi out of Pepperdine. At 54, the Boston Celtics, who took Ty Grant Foster earlier, are going to take AJ Mitchell. At 55, the Lakers, they're going to go for a backup big man in Oso Ighodaro. At 56, the Denver Nuggets, who took Hunter Salas earlier, are going to roll with JT Toppin. At 57, the Grizzlies, who took Connect and Bona, are going to go with Baba Miller. And with the final pick of the draft, 50th pick, the Dallas Mavericks are going to roll with Isaiah Crawford. And that concludes this mock draft. Let me know what you think of these picks down in the comment section below. Let me know what picks you like, what picks you didn't like, and what players are your favorite sleepers in this year's draft. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next video or live stream. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.